This is CBS.
Jamie's dad with a message for the hometown folk at 11.
Because the following special program, Square Pegs, will not be presented this evening.
Hi, I'm Prince Tariq, Royal Prince of the Munda. And I know it's Buddha, but usually royalty only gets grounded, not exiled. I was only trying to make things more interesting when I piped in Madonna's Like a Virgin at the papal audience. But heads of state have no sense of humor. Take my brother. Ever since he became king, he started taking things too seriously. Now he's sending me and my aide Omar to America to go to college and live on a budget. Well, when I heard the plan, I was willing to give it a try. I figured, why not grow up and mature? As long as I can have some fun doing it. But I've been in New York 9 days, and well, it's been a real shock. I'm going to succeed here. I just don't think my brother sending me to New York was a good idea.
You are the royal prince of Zamunda. You will make it here. And if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere.
Yes, that was the one and only episode of Coming to America, the TV show. The TV show in 1989, part of a CBS trilogy. It was a pilot show for Coming to America, and listen to the actors that didn't get the role. Marlon Wayans audition, didn't get it. Will Smith, this is pre-Fresh Prince. Will Smith didn't get it. And I believe Jamie Foxx auditioned and didn't get it. Tommy Davidson have said to have knocked it out of the park. They did one pilot. One person has it on YouTube. I found it. And I wanted you guys to see it for yourselves, to know that there was actually a Coming to America TV show. And Eddie Murphy was actually an executive producer on it. And one of the servants, the guy that sings Queen to be, that guy actually has a part in the show. I watched about 15 minutes of it. It's a horrible recording the person has. It's literally someone took their VHS and somehow dumped it digitally. And I will put a link up to it if you guys really want to see it for yourselves. The Coming to America TV show. Yes, and we are only 15 more subscriptions away from the magical 1,000 number. So, coming off that very great Thursday night show, I will bring in my co-host, my homie, my dog, Pascal Robert.
My man, Jason Miles. What's going on? How are you living, my brother?
I'm doing all right. It's my homegirl Jillian Elizabeth's birthday.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Jillian.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday.
That's all you get. So we have a guest today. Our normal co-host, Marcus from the Left Flank Vets, can't be with us today. My feelings are a little hurt about that because almost simultaneously, Marcus sends me a message and says, dude, I just saw Coming to America 2. We have to do a show about it. Then Pascal literally calls me and goes, dude. Actually doesn't say dude. I won't tell you what he says. But he says, we got to do a show about it. So in lieu of Marcus, we got something equally as good. You know him from the Jacobin YouTube channel. He is a teacher. And I think he runs the teachers union in Philadelphia. One of the teachers unions in Philadelphia. He is Paul Prescod.
Hey, great to be here. And
I
definitely do not run the teachers union. Just be clear, I'm a member.
My bad. So I hit up Paul because we're doing a whole Jacobin takeover. We're gonna get all of the colored people from Jacobin.
Right.
Boschcar isn't getting back to me.
I thought what you meant was the colored people are going to take over Jacobin. Which
most of y'all is colored actually.
That would be wonderful.
Right.
I think most of y'all is colored.
Yeah. I mean, not the whole editorial board. Come on, we gotta think bigger.
The face people.
Right.
Does Pascal take requests? Somebody asked.
What you want me to sing that? Now I'm entertaining people.
Pascal, you just heard that my birthday happened recently and I did not get a song, which is a little messed up.
Oh, damn.
A little messed up, but
damn.
It's cool.
But it is Paul's birthday. Can we tell people how old you are?
Yeah, go ahead.
Paul just turned dirty 30.
30.
That's grown man shit.
That's right.
Now he's looking at his life decisions way differently.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know how to feel. It's mixed emotions, but what are you gonna do?
Joanna says it could actually be Black Jacobins. I was thinking about calling that episode today that, but I was like, nah. Before I get into the geopolitical ramifications of coming to America that Pascal called me up, so excited to talk about. And again, I wish people sometimes could hear the conversations that we have at night. They could be shows, especially the one we had the other night where Pascal accidentally called me and Gene on the three-way party line on Facebook chat. That could have been a whole episode. But where I'm from in Richmond, California, a case showed up in my social media news feed. There's a magazine called the Richmond Standard that I follow because the city that I'm from actually sued Chevron. I believe they're the first municipality to sue Chevron because of pollution. So this was the only place that I could find any kind of coverage on it. So they had a story about a case that happened in one of the homeless hotels. And if you've watched this show before, you've heard me talk about it. You've heard me talk about living next to an encampment. You've heard me talk about living in a van and actually working in one of the hotels that are housing homeless people during the pandemic. So in these hotels, they are what's called wet shelters, so people can use drugs. No, they don't provide you with drugs, but you can use drugs in these shelters. The harm reduction model. And people have kids in these shelters, and sometimes people are even pregnant. And there aren't services for the most part. And cats aren't really monitoring you for the most part. So a 5-week-old baby got taken to a hospital. It wasn't breathing. Doctors found that it was malnourished and dehydrated. Police went to investigate the parents' room. They found meth pipes and torches. So, of course, they're drug users. So the parents actually are being arraigned on murder charges for the death of this child. My question for the panel and, of course, for the people in the chat, and I want to get the somber tone out of the way before we kind of giggle and shit with the coming to America stuff, is this justice? Is justice being served in this situation? So we'll start off with the new guy.
Damn, I was hoping Pascal would go first.
Well, we can start with Pascal.
Me
and Pascal. No, start with Pascal. Go ahead. Go ahead. Do you want to start? You want to kick it off?
I'm good with starting.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's like again, I don't know too much details about this particular institution and all that, but it's like if you're not supporting and giving resources and services to a situation like this, I mean, it's like a ticking time bomb. Mm-hmm. So it's like, I mean, of course, something like this was going to happen, if you're not providing like addiction services or things like that. So, yeah, I mean, like, who am I to say that if I was that parent in that situation, I would have been able to avoid a situation like that happening to my child? Of course, I can sit here and say, oh, if I had a child now, I would never let that happen, but I'm not in that situation. So Yeah, I mean, what would I do if I were the judge? I mean, I don't know, but I mean, this just speaks to, this is what happens. This is like the real dark side. I mean, it's the only side of austerity, but like this is what happens when you destroy a welfare state and you just pile austerity layered on austerity on austerity, and you take as a given that the government cannot invest in services and just figure it out. I mean, this is the results of that, so it definitely can't lie just on the parents' blame.
And I want to add, the article actually says, and the other victims in this case are the police and the investigators.
I read that. I read that.
How is that?
No, seriously. Police care more about children than actual policing. Some kind of spurious statement.
But yeah, they said we're parents first and police second.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I found the article rather sad, but to the nature of whether this was a crime or not. I mean, if crimes are based on intent, then the question needs to become: do we think that these obviously poor, homeless, destitute people intended to have this child killed? I can see they're probably going to try to charge them with negligent homicide. There can't be any I don't see how there's any premeditation here at all, or reckless endangerment. But I mean, at the same time, again, the carceral state disproportionately affects people who are poor and working class. So here we have a situation. We have people who are, unhoused, drug addicted, and they're now going to be facing a situation where they may be incarcerated because of the fact that their material circumstances may have denied them the ability to have food to feed their children. Where were they getting the money to feed this to get the food? I mean, was the food being provided from the shelter? Were they negligent in actually providing food for the child? I mean, it's definitely one of those situations where we ask, is this justice? And for me, it's a perfect example of how the precarity of capitalism denies justice in several ways if you're not of a certain economic level of security in this country. And for us to look at these individuals and say, well, listen, these people are murderers, they neglected their kids. And we were like, what if these people might have had emotional, mental health challenges? There could be a variety of reasons that cause this to happen. Yet the only option we look for is a carceral option. And I think that sadly, that's not really getting to the root of what the problem is here.
Right.
Paul brings up an interesting point, and I can tell you from working not inside this particular facility, because this facility is a little different. It's an extended stay, and mind you, I don't know. I know you have them in Philly, and I don't know which hotels they took over in Philly, and I don't know what area it's in. But is it in a kind of a hood area, the hotels they took over?
Actually, I don't think so. And I actually should know this, but they did have hotels providing shelter for homeless. I forget exactly where, and I don't know many details about it.
This extended stay where it's at it used to be in a decent part of town, but now the mall that it's adjacent to is being torn down, and they don't really know what they're doing with it. So you do have a lot of people living in their RVs and stuff in the parking lot adjacent to it. It totally different area than what I grew up. I actually worked at that mall. I met my first wife at that mall that's right next to where this hotel is, so I know it. And so when you think about these places as shelters, if you've ever been in a shelter, there's a specific layout that you want for these facilities that you don't have for a hotel. And they're not made to monitor people. It's not like a hospital, right? So you can't just do rounds in a 7-story building like you could, as easy as you could in a shelter per se, or even a hospital that's a little more built for that, because this is built for you to come in with your car, go to sleep, and get the fuck out. So there's just a lot of privacy. And also there's kind of, I don't want to say rules, but for the most part, you're not hiring people with backgrounds in this world. So you're getting people in that just want work. And once they find out that all I got to do is just sit here for X amount of hours, I'm just going to sit here for X amount of hours. And then that's when you get a lot of the judgment being passed on like pregnant women shooting up. And this is the reality of these places. I can tell you from the one I worked in, we had a pregnant woman that wouldn't stop doing dope. And we weren't even offering her services. By the time I finally got services in there for everybody, I had to leave because they had another COVID outbreak amongst staff. And then they got rid of all those services because it was so overworked, because the system was also getting all the released convicts that had to quarantine for 14 days before they could get back on the streets.
Right.
So it's an overworked, definitely underpaid, definitely under-resourced system that you put people in a room where they actually finally have privacy. First of all, it's like, now you don't got to share a bathroom. You don't got to share a bed. And these people had children, and they smoked a lot of meth. I don't know if people have been around people that smoke dope, but I asked somebody once, because we had a lot of ex-addicts that worked there. And I said, being that people have a shower in their room, finally they have the privacy to take a shower. Why aren't cats taking a shower? And the first thing somebody says is like, because you'll miss out. I was like, word? He's like, you're going to miss out. That's the mindset when you're using that hardcore. And we're talking about people that are using like, super hardcore.
Yeah.
So the environment is one where, in my opinion, this shit is bound to happen. And for law enforcement to jump so hard down the throats of the parents, like you guys are saying, is really pushing away from looking at the system as a whole.
And what Pascal was saying about the root problem, let's say these parents get, I don't know how much they would get, but 15 years in prison. And it's like, when they get out, unless in the next 15 years we establish like a New Deal type full employment program, what's to say when they get out, something like this will not happen again to them, or they're not going to end up right back in that shelter. So like, will a punitive punishment actually solve any of this? I don't think it will. So if that's your goal, this doesn't seem like the route to meet that goal.
I'm going ahead and posting the article in the chat, everybody. If you guys want to see it, I'm going to go ahead and post it there. Did you have something you wanted to say, Pascal, before we move on?
No, I'm in agreement with both of you gentlemen. It's a tragic story that this demonstrates how not having a public goods type of governance model that we haven't had in over 50 years in this country basically relegates these kinds of situations to becoming the norm.
Decrim of drugs without robust health service is insane to me. It is insane. And, again, working in those environments, one thing that people always say to you is, can we get a counselor in here? Can we get an AA meeting, man? Can we get an NA meeting? Jay, can we get an NA meeting? Can we do something? And there's a lot of bureaucratic steps you have to take before you can have a meeting. And it was hard to get a non-NA type meeting just for people in there that, just wanted to not have the shakes. You know what I mean? So it was reading this story and coming from working inside these environments and knowing that this story is only being published in an extremely small online publication. And once the onus is put on those people and it's not put on this program, and let's keep in mind, this program is going to be a key program for someone like Gavin Newsom moving forward with his political aspirations. He was kind of forced into doing something, much like what happened in Philly, where there was such a push from people on the ground to be like, no, you got to do something now. That something was done very quickly with not much oversight. Couple that with the fact that we got hit with all these prisoners and the horrible outbreak that happened in San Quentin. Sad story. So I posted the article in the chat. If you guys want to go ahead and check it out, do that. If you have any comments about it, go ahead and send them in through the chat, or you can inbox me and we can have conversations about it. Moving on
a lighter note.
On a lighter note. So my mom is here, by the way.
Oh,
good morning, Pamela Davis.
Now you got to be on your best behavior.
No, because my mom.
She's always chastising him for.
Yeah, my mom is mean as hell. My mom. So Paul, to give you an idea about how horrible my mom is to me, she sees me yesterday, and she said, "You need to button up your shirt all the way to the top button. Don't nobody need to see all that taco meat."
Oh,
and I was like, "Thanks." She goes, "Put a relaxer in it or something."
That's a sign of love,
Wow,
that's better. My dad just calls me a mulatto all the time. Like, so it's a certain generation. I know I just dropped a bomb there, but it's true, and it's he's not wrong totally, but
like you just see, here comes that mixed motherfucker.
Right. Oh. I mean, he knows as much as anyone who he made me with. So
is it like it reminds you of Kid and Play? Have you ever seen House Party?
Yeah.
That scene where he says, "I should have never married that white woman."
It's funny. Now that we're totally off topic, a good friend of mine, it's funny, like so he goes to this barber who is like hyper, as you described, hyper black nationalist. Like when he's in the barbershop, that's always talking about. And so he knew this guy for a year. And then a year into it, he finds out he actually had married a white woman and was dating a white woman at the time.
Keep it real.
Right.
Real white.
But anyway, that's a whole show on that.
Well, we need to bring you. Is your dad? Is he still around?
He is. Yeah, he turned 70 in February.
Oh, we need to bring his black ass on here. Will he talk some shit?
He will. It'll be unpredictable what kind of shit he talks, but we'll see.
Hey, I got a black daddy too, and that motherfucker never ceases to amaze me. The shit that comes out of his mouth.
Yeah, and my dad's from Barbados, so that's a whole nother level.
Asian. He's Bayesian.
He's a whole nother level of shit talking there, but.
My mom says happy birthday, Paul.
Thank you. And keep getting on Jason's case about his shirt, You gotta.
Yeah, she's too much. My mom actually said, she goes, "You need me on the show." And I was like,
Pamela Davis on the show? Ooh,
she would just wreck.
We should have a show with your mom and my dad, and just like see how that will go.
Oh, my mom,
and then bring on my mom as a surprise guest, and just totally torpedo the whole thing.
Are your parents still married?
No, they're not.
Do they don't get along?
No, they do. It was very civil divorce, and they still communicate, and there are it's good terms.
Dope. I haven't seen my ex-wife in like 3 years. I'm totally okay with that.
That's your
fault. So now, on a lighter note, now that we know entirely too much about everybody's families,
right?
Pascal hits me up. Marcus and Pascal hit me up literally back to back about Coming to America 2. I was on the fence about watching it because I am such an Eddie Murphy fan. My mother, Pamela Davis, and you can't get in trouble for this now, Mama, because I'm grown, but she used to let me watch all this shit that you're not supposed to let your kid watch all the time. And Eddie Murphy Raw like blew my mind. I watched Eddie Murphy Raw the first time, and I was like, I want to be Eddie Murphy, and I still try to run around and talk like him to this day. It's a damn shame. So Coming to America for me and my friends was like this great film For me, it's Golden Child, Boomerang, Coming to America, and then the Beverly Hills Cop franchise.
Nutty Professor's not on there at all?
No. After Raw, he could have retired. He could have retired for me after Raw. We watched Delirious in high school every Friday night of my junior year of high school at one of our good friends' houses.
You know what's fascinating? It's fascinating how the comedy from that era does not translate well to today's generation of wokeness at all.
Oh no.
You can't say a lot of this shit. Delirious.
I mean, he just comes out the gate with another one of my favorites. I think the top of all of them was, I forget the name of it, Richard Pryor when he's in the red long sleeve shirt.
You're talking about live on the Sunset Strip.
Yeah, that one. That one gets me.
That's soon after he lights himself on fire.
Right.
That's another movie I watched with my dad, entirely too young, not understanding what I was watching, was JoJo Dancer, Your Life Is Calling You. I'm like, what's he smoking? That's freebase, son.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is interesting, though, just on that topic about like how comedy has changed over time. I remember reading an article recently how Eddie Murphy was saying that he looked at his old comedy and he was saying like, oh my God, I can't believe I said that stuff. He was kind of falling in line with the contemporary, sentiment about certain kind of politically incorrect comedy being inappropriate. He's like, I would never do those things again. I would never say it again. And how do you compare that to someone like Dave Chappelle, who is, relentless in his desire to push the buttons and to kind of push the political correctness kind of envelope as far as possible, who is unwilling to be cowed in any way by pressure by audiences saying that, you just can't say those things. Because I noticed the reaction that particularly people like young millennials and younger to Dave Chappelle's comedy, and they're like, this is terrible. Oh my God, how can he say this? And I was saying to myself, I was like, you guys obviously couldn't even have stomached Eddie Murphy in his youth. So do we see that as a good thing, that comedy standards have evolved to a point where certain comedy is, unacceptable, or are we all just becoming too woke for our own good?
Well, it's interesting with Chappelle because, I mean, I'm a millennial. And so a certain section of us, just like Jason was saying, every Friday night, you would watch Raw. Like, that was Chappelle's show for us. So, like, I think for some of us millennials, like, Chappelle's show and Chappelle is untouchable, but maybe for some of the younger ones, I don't know. I think I could be wrong on this. I mean, I just feel like with comedy, for me, I feel like when I'm watching it, it's kind of like I step in a room, and it's a room where the understanding is like, these are jokes, and almost all jokes can fly. It's like, it's kind of feeling like if you're with a close friend of yours you've known forever, and if they're in a different race and you're just fucking with each other, and it's total understanding that these are jokes. So that's the way I treat stand-up comedy. It's like, in that realm, and to me, it's comedy. Anything goes. If a comedian says something, I'm not assuming that person is a bigot necessarily. I mean, they might be, but I don't know. That's just how I approach comedy. And like, I think that's how it has to be. And the thing about what was also compelling about, I think, especially Richard Pryor and Chappelle and Eddie Murphy, was like, I mean, they were just talking about real shit. And like, you were like, this person is telling the truth. And it's sometimes like painful and sad, and sometimes hilarious, and sometimes all of it at the same time. But I don't know, you can't like shield people from life. And I was just having a conversation today with some friends of mine about, how they're taking some things off of Disney Plus, old comedies, old cartoons. And it's like, part of, even if you acknowledge like, oh, this show from the 70s was messed up, like, we should be able to see that, because then you learn about,
thank you.
If you're my age. And I mean, I'm a social studies teacher, and I tell my students, like, watching a TV show is also a primary source. You don't have to read a book to be studying history. And like, you can watch a show from the 70s and understand, well, this is just where people were at that time. You get a better understanding of how people thought culturally and thought about race. So we should be able to see that, you know, and learn from that and just understand what things were like in a certain time period. Like why shield people from that?
So basically, you're saying it's a bad thing that we're canceling Pepe Le Pew right now?
I never really watched Pepe Le Pew, but
he was always uncomfortable to watch, man. That was one of the Looney Tunes I didn't really dig because it was just uncomfortable to watch him always grab the cat. Right? It's always a cat that falls in the paint. I can tell you I haven't hung around Dave Chappelle, but a very good friend of mine opens for Chappelle, and he was with Dave at a retreat that Dave had. So if you've seen pictures from last year where there's like a retreat with all these comedians and like Questlove and Erykah Badu and Mos Def and Talib. He also goes on the road with Mos Def and Talib and opens for them there. Dave had hooked him up with God, what's his name from Tribe Called Quest? This is killing me right now. Jacobin from Tribe Called Quest, and they were doing I think they sold a pilot, and he had asked me to come help him with it. I didn't know what he wanted. I didn't know I was going to be on a panel with all these people, comedians and fucking Jacobin from Tribe Called Quest, and he's a chef. And being in a room with comedians is the rawest shit you're going to get. Right? Because like you said, everything is on the table. Nothing is off limits. We're not recording. We're just and you know, me and this dude are actually pretty good friends from high school. So everything is on the table. And another thing they do is, and I know Chappelle has been doing this recently at a lot of his shows, is they take your phone away.
Okay. Wow.
Like you got to sit there and just enjoy a show. Which it's interesting to see people fuss and fight. And I've worked in live music for some time. So there's only a small handful of artists that have that level of power to be like, nope, everybody's phone is getting taken away.
Right.
And they bring these lockers in and they lock your phone away. It's real cool to see people just enjoy a show for a second and not do this.
Right. Or film them so they can put it on Twitter and denounce them. And
you gotta be there.
Right.
Talk to a stranger. Like these are foreign concepts for a lot of people.
You know what?
So, go ahead.
Oh, I mean, this just got me thinking about when you won't believe this, but I went to a show of, remember the comedian Gallagher? Remember him?
Yeah.
Believe it or not, he was hilarious. He had a 3-hour show. Only about 30 minutes of it was smashing fruit. Most of
was it him or was it his brother?
No, it was Gallagher.
They're both named Gallagher.
Whoever the real one is.
You sure?
I'm pretty sure.
They're twins.
Really? I mean,
I'm being totally serious.
And they both did stand up to that degree.
His brother, the original Gallagher had retired, and his twin brother started
this was
wearing.
Sometime in the late 90s.
Yeah,
I don't know when. Anyway, whoever was funny as hell.
Oh, you enjoyed it?
Oh yeah. I mean, it totally surprised me. Just putting that out there. Most of it was like improv and calling people up on stage and messing with them. So, but is
he from your area?
I don't even know.
The Gallaghers. Do you remember Gallagher, Pascal?
And Chappelle, of course, did Black Gallagher, if you remember that, right? Where he shoots the fruit.
I started watching Chappelle again randomly to kill time, because it's on Netflix again. That shit is pretty. It was really damn funny. That man is kind of ahead of his game right now. I know there's been some people complaining in the chat that they think that he wasn't as funny on this last special. He hasn't really been funny to me on these last few specials as he is trying to get a point across with some jokes in there, whatever that point is. Because I think some of his politics are kind of shit. I don't like Andrew Yang.
Yeah. He's a Yang ganger, right? He's a Yang
He
guy.
fucking phone banked for Andrew Yang.
But, and this is, you can see how very wealthy people would be into that. And like, you know, and Yang kind of fits this like libertarian, like someone like Chappelle, who I think you can tell he is a critical thinker, you know, and has good thoughts and stuff, but like it's probably not going to be wedded to a class politics given his position. And like Yang is perfect for that. I'm just so annoyed Yang has caught on like he did, because I'm like, during the debates, I'm like,
he's ahead in the polls in New York right now.
Is he?
And it's like he's so one dimensional. I'm like, during the debates, it's like, all right, all you're going to talk about is automation and UBI. Like, I'm glad, sure, someone should talk about automation, cool, but that's it. UBI, okay. I don't know. I'm just not impressed by him at all.
No, and it's scary to see. To me, him being mayor of New York is like Prop 22 being mayor of New York.
Right. And you all, I mean, you may have talked about this before, but you know, the origins of UBI are from like the Milton Friedman type.
Nixonian. They're totally Nixonian.
Because the whole idea, now I'm not saying we couldn't implement UBI in a way that's paired with other universal programs, but you know, the roots of it is like, well, we'll give people UBI and therefore then we can cut every other social program or totally cut whatever's left of the welfare state and have fun on your UBI. That was its original vision. And that's why you see all these tech millionaires and billionaires kind of supporting it. I think they would like that vision. So just beware of that about UBI.
No, there's definitely like a poison pill element to UBI that, you know, we give you the UBI and we cut all other state sanctioned social safety nets because, you know, we're giving you guys a check. So there's definitely a very, you know, there is a left critique of UBI in the current way that it's being proposed, without a doubt. And a lot of people are not worried about that. They're not weary of that because they think it's a progressive concept that, like, you know, give everyone a basic check and that's fine. And that in and of itself is not problematic per se until you actually calculate the way it's going to be used to neutralize other state services and federal services as well.
Yep.
So yes, that's very true.
Sorry, I'm doing my job. But I wanted to get into this Coming to America.
Yeah.
So Pascal Marcus hit me up, Coming to America. So me and my girlfriend, I hate saying girlfriend, but woman I date seems so rude. But me and the grown woman that I live with, that I date and have a child with, we're watching Coming to America with we had waited for our 2-year-old to go to sleep. I don't know why. It wasn't like we was going to see a titty or anything. We just waited for him to go to sleep so we could enjoy it. And we watched it, and there were some giggles that we had, but overall, like Paul said, I don't think it hit me in the funny bone like the first one did. I did like seeing the barbershop scene again. The barbershop for me kind of stole the whole movie. Bringing back McDowell's and Louis Anderson, I thought was kind of funny. For some reason, I thought John Amos was dead because I remember when James died on Good Times. Do you remember John Amos from Good Times? Paul, you old enough to remember Good Times? You watch the reruns?
Yeah, I remember the reruns. I'll say that.
Any episode where James has to pay the rent by getting his pool cue is always my favorite one. Oh, no, James, don't get the pool cue. So, Pascal,
yes.
You watched this movie. You called me up because you're so excited. What was the first thing that blew you away when you started watching this movie?
I like the visuals, man. The costumes, the attire, the whole aesthetic of the film was pretty appealing to me. I like the movie. I mean, I'm like, did people expect War and Peace? Were they looking for Shakespeare? I mean, they think they were looking at an August Wilson play. I mean, this is an Eddie Murphy comedy. I felt like, you know, the reaction that I saw people like, oh, this is terrible. I mean, the jokes in the first Coming to America were better, but what I found interesting was the way in which they demonstrated how the Akeem character had evolved to where now he's about to be king, And there's this geopolitical conflict. We're going to be doing some spoilers. Spoiler alerts for those who haven't seen it yet. But, you should go watch the movie. There was this geopolitical conflict between Akeem's country and the neighboring country, based on his inability to have a male heir and a relationship, a familial tension that he had with the ruler, who was played of the nearby country that was played by Wesley Snipes. And I found that story kind of fascinating. It definitely heralded back to kind of like old monarchical kind of conflicts between families and royal families over land and territory. And I thought it was pretty interesting. So that aspect of the story I thought was kind of fascinating. But the one thing that I will say is that someone actually jumped in here and got why I felt a lot of people didn't like it. Now, I'm not going to say that accounts for why Paul might not have liked it, but my theory that you were alluding to, Jason, is that I think that there's a large segment, particularly of younger people, who are not feeling coming to America too. And someone here alluded to that here, is because in the current age of the diaspora wars that you're seeing on social media, that's pitting African Americans against Africans, and the questioning of the validity of Pan-Africanism, I think that there are a lot of people who are starting to subscribe to that kind of anti-Black diaspora, anti-Pan-African politics, who did not like a movie with Eddie Murphy, who was Black American, kind of celebrating an African identity. I think that kind of appeal to a certain kind of Pan-Africanist sensibility turned a lot of people off who are ascribing to this new type, and I think it's reactionary, this new type of reactionary nativism that kind of turns them off to anything that even has the slightest suggestion of Pan-African influence. I'd like to hear your thoughts on it. And someone in the chat alluded to this before I even said it, so I'm not alone in my assessment.
I was excited. Somebody said something about the worst part, the opening concert with In Vogue and Salt and Pepper. I will say that I told my girl, I was like, I feel like whoever made this movie made it for people that were my age and maybe Pascal's age that watched it back in the day. To bring back Salt and Pepper and In Vogue, that you are hearkening back to what was hot in that era.
Right. In the 80s, in the 90s.
In the 80s, yeah. So, and I thought, and my girl goes, that's not the same In Vogue from back in the day. You noticed somebody was missing, right?
Yeah, that's true. But Paul, you have some thoughts on the
go
ahead.
Yeah, well, let me first say, I just had to get this out that, again, spoiler alert, but the best part of the movie for me was Tracy Morgan in the when they're waiting for the job interview, saying these Mitt Romney looking ass schmiggas. That was that was the peak of the movie for me, and that was pretty early on. But I mean, that's an interesting thing you bring up, Pascal. I mean, I think, I think the charge from some people would be like, well, this is like cheap cultural appropriation of, different kinds of African culture. But yeah, I mean, I haven't really talked about this movie with other people kind of my generation or around that. I mean, another angle I was looking at it from, I think like kind of the end message of the movie, or really the takeaway, is almost this is the story of a monarchy becoming a little bit more woke and representative. So, they by the end come to the conclusion that we should have a woman in power, but of course they're not giving up the monarchy or giving up their power or redistributing wealth in any way. Of course, we don't ever hear from someone else, a working person in the kingdom, about what it's like. But I feel like that was an element going on. It was like a ruling class becoming more woke by the end. And I think some interesting dynamics of, they're kind of tutoring a Black American working class person in how to be elite, and kind of offering patronage in that way. So I don't know. I'll throw that out there as well.
I mean, definitely, like, from a leftist kind of Marxist to political economy based analysis, the whole concept of a monarchy, whether African, European, or otherwise, of course, that we get that from a kind of leftist kind sensibility, the notion of having a biologically inherited ruling class is anathema to our sensibilities. I understand it, and I get that politics, and I understand also that it's fundamentally in an elitist project to try to celebrate that. I realize that, but I also realize is that we can take our left hat off sometimes and just kind of like enjoy something for the sake of enjoyment.
Right.
I do agree with you that there should be an analysis of the way in which the celebration of kings and queens, particularly within like Black popular culture production, even to the point where people are like, what's going on, king? How are you, queen? This kind of reverence for royalty that is a subtle cultural aspect of the way many Black folk interact or even greet each other. There's definitely an analysis about that. It's like, when you're saying kings or queens, but even in the face of the current Meghan Markle fracas that we see, in which we see a lot of Black folk are vested in defending Meghan as being this kind of like, it's like, oh, as a Black woman. I was like, oh, word? Meghan Markle identifies as a Black woman now? Oh, that's interesting. That's, good to know. So, I mean, it's, there is a lot there to challenge. But I guess for me, I felt that the way in which the centering of Africa and the uniting of, Akeem goes to New York and he gets his American wife, and now he goes back to get his American son, who falls in love with an African woman. So my suspicion was that all of this depiction of America plus Africa uniting in this current politics, I think there's some people who fundamentally were not really feeling that kind of dynamic at all, because they want to continually push this kind of diaspora wars narrative that fuels some people's understanding of what should be authentically priority for Black folk. Jason, what do you think?
Wow. That interesting. I didn't look. I was watching that movie mainly because you and Marcus wanted to see the movie. I had wanted to watch the Billie Holiday movie. I had to watch Coming to America, and then my girl was like, don't we have to watch part 1 first? I was like, you don't remember it verbatim? I was like, you know too many Black people to not know this movie verbatim. There's a few movies I can recite to you without a script. Coming to America is one of those films.
Well, Paul, let me ask you a question, because you haven't really delved in. I mean, as a materialist, dialectical materialist, or historical materialist, what are your thoughts on the current "quote unquote" diaspora war issue? That, I mean, you're on social media. I'm sure you're not alien to seeing how contentious the discourse has become. And you may not, you may not necessarily agree with my analysis as that being a factor for the discontent with the film, but what are your overall thoughts on the phenomenon generally?
Yeah, I mean, part of what's hard is the discourse about it is so all over the place. It's hard to even get your bearings about it. I mean, I think on the one hand, like you said, there's some people that, because of that kind of politics, might be against seeing like a kind of Pan-African sensibility. But on the other hand, just like, many people that you have on this show kind of critique this idea of a monolithic African-American population with all the same interests. I think some of that goes on where I think on the other side of that coin, there's millennials who kind of adopt this almost like a lazy Pan-African sense that like, oh yeah, well, it's kind of we're all in this together. We're all part of the same struggle, and which of course gets very complicated once you start digging in to the history of particular particular African countries and things like that, and kind of like put it all together in this sense. And this is something like Adolph Reed talks about like the Black freedom movement. You kind of like jumble it all together. Like, yeah, Bayard Rustin, Black Panthers, put them all in a pot. It's all the same movement. And I think some millennials might have a tendency to go that route as well, as saying like, well, we're all Black people in this same struggle together, which I think kind of can miss a lot of dynamics of what's going on. And even, even go back to the time of how complicated it got after African countries got independence, and how messy that was, and different conflicts between nations that that still exists. I think that complicates the idea of Pan-Africanism. I don't know if I really answered your question, but that's what came to mind.
Interesting.
But as a movie, I mean, I'm with you in general in terms of movies. Like, I wasn't expecting this to be like Schindler's List, you know. So I'm not looking for that from movies. So
it would have been a dark film.
Right. So as a movie, though, I just kind of felt, you know, my dissatisfaction with it is really not about the politics of it. I mean, most movies, I'm not going to be satisfied with the politics, but yeah, I thought the jokes were kind of corny. I think they were trying to force it a lot of like doing it again and making it a thing and bringing in everyone. And yeah, I just felt like a lot of the jokes just didn't land for me. I don't know.
Like we said off air, it's like Happy Days reunions. It's the same way people felt about I don't know if you're a Star Wars fan at all, The Force Awakens. A lot of the pushback on that was people were like, oh, it felt like a Happy Days reunion because, you know, we're getting the gang back together that we haven't seen for literally 40 years. So Jean Bajlan asked this question. Don't you think that the Black fascination with an idealized feudalistic Africa is similar to white America's fascination with Downton Abbey and castles and feudal Europe?
I think it's a different motivation. I think that the Black fascination with a regal or a royal African identity comes from a phenomenon I wrote an article about in Huffington Post called The Politics of Redemption. That, you know, part of the reality of, you know, part of the consequence of being of an ethnic group that is intellectually and personally degraded throughout American history is this constant need to find something to redeem or vindicate your identity, to redeem you in the consciousness of the larger society and vindicate your place as a Black person. And I think that part of that project comes with the identification with royalty. When we were kings and queens. When we ruled on our own, you know, there's a whole kind of Afrocentric literary discourse about, like, you know, when the Black man ruled the world, all of this kind of, you know, attempt to vindicate and redeem oneself to prove that, you know, we're not what they say we are. We once were at the top of the hill. I think it feeds into this need to kind of romanticize the concept of monarchy and feudal African or pre-colonial African societies without having a very, very critical eye for some things that were not exactly as pleasant about those societies.
Right. Yeah, I think that's right. And I think, you know, when it comes to Black people doing that, you know, it's much more understandable why that's happening, why the need for redemption, and there's much more of a basis for it, you could say, than glorifying Downton Abbey and all that kind of stuff. But you know, it at the end of the day, it still doesn't mean that it can get us into problems doing that, or at least doesn't provide much clarity on what should be done today, you know.
Well, let me ask you guys this question, because this is starting to come up in the chat a lot. I guess the costume designer was the same one from Black Panther. Coming to America, Black Panther. I know a lot of people found Black Panther problematic. A lot on the left, I should say. Not everybody. I definitely had some friends that were in kente cloth crying at the movie theater watching Black Panther, which I thought was just silly. How do you guys feel about juxtaposing Black Panther with this movie, Pascal?
Well, I mean, I think I understand the comparison, right? They're both, you know, stories about, you know, a
fictional
kind of
African lands,
fictionalized African idyllic societies who are powerful in their own right, you know, maintain dominion and control of themselves. There's no illusion to a kind of like imperialist European playing the puppet master. So again, for me, I think that part of the appeal of both of those films are rooted in the same phenomenon that we were just discussing about this need for vindicationism or redemption, you know, to redeem, to deem the global Black image. And I think that the way I would distinguish the two films, right, is that with Black Panther, you see the role of the CIA being involved, which is something I found fascinating. I was like, Wakanda is so powerful, but they still have to bump heads with the CIA. I mean, it's not powerful enough to neutralize them. And I still think that the line that can be drawn between both films is that still exists a need within the Black consciousness to project an image of what some would call Black excellence or Black achievement or Black Black power, if you will, out of a sense of a need to vindicate or validate oneself. And my problem with that project is not that I think, I'm one who believes that Pan-Africanism may have value in a revolutionary context and other contexts, but when the premise, and also in a class context, because these are countries that suffer from neoliberalism and capitalism, and I think that the left should be internationalists across the board. But beyond that, I think that when you base your connection with other people out of a need to prove you are human to others, I think it's a very flawed type of motivation. It demonstrates a certain kind of internal insecurity that I don't think is healthy.
Did you have kente cloth on when you went to go see Black Panther, Paul?
I didn't. Sorry to say I didn't. And I think I didn't even see that in theaters. I wasn't motivated to go out to see it. And I think part of the problem here too is when we start confusing, essentially Hollywood and these kind of symbolic victories of a movie like this or something. Adolf Reed always brings up all the time about how are we supposed to feel this is a gain if we have more Black people winning Oscars and stuff like that. And I think, I understand how these things can be important as symbols, but people start, I think, mistaking this for actual politics. And you can kind of go.
I agree with that.
And I definitely think Jason and Pascal agree with me. And, so I think that's the danger of this. And, you can see how this stuff can easily be translated into the takeaway being, yes, we need more Black business owners, entrepreneurs to be kings of our own realm. This is self-determination now in America, more Black business owners. You can see very easily how that comes out. That can be the takeaway. And just a point earlier, just again about, the connection to Africa or how we're thinking about that today. Something Walter Rodney, the great Guyanese historian, used to write about a lot. He wrote a lot about Africa, but commenting on, Black political actors in the United States, he said, look, at the end of the day, most Black people want to improve their lives in the United States. And the connection to Africa in some senses can be abstract, depending on how you frame it. And, you got to craft a political strategy that makes sense in the United States. And he's saying he didn't feel that many African Americans would be necessarily motivated by abstract appeals to Africa. And I think what he was kind of advocating for was a more of approach of improving material conditions of African Americans in the United States as a route. So I don't know. I'm just kind of raising that as a cause because I think sometimes people can kind of go down a bit of a rabbit hole with this kind of stuff. So.
You mean talking about Black Panther and or
just
Africa?
And again, in these kind of movies too. And again, obviously we're talking about it here, right? I'm not saying we shouldn't comment on these things, but again, I think some people will run away with it and just mistake it too much for an actual political victory, or you know what I mean? I know you all understand that,
Someone asked, there's one, look, man, I am a bit of a comic book fan and have been since I was a young child. So I understand that it's fantasy. I don't watch Black Panther and think that there's really a magical land where there's a magical mineral that's indestructible. I'd take before people get too mad. Well, the CIA guy was the good guy. It's like, yeah, and there's also like literal magical people in this place, and some of them happen to be black. But I don't go so far as to say stuff like, well, Killmonger was right because he thought that they should open up borders, but he kind of really wanted to just open up certain trade routes. When you really start to break down a lot of the things that he was saying, I don't think his thinking was as revolutionary as people wanted it to be in the film. But because people liked his character so much, if you're a comic book fan, Marvel literally has brought him back as a character. He's an inconsequential character in the comics, actually, and they brought him back, and he has a whole series. I can't remember if Ta-Nehisi Coates writes for him or not, though.
I hope not. But I mean, I want to kind of offshoot something that Paul was talking about, is that I think that for me, and I think Jason knows about me, right, is that I've always, my posture on Black cultural production, Black popular cultural production within the framework of American capitalism, as someone who was, on the left or radical, whatever you want to use the term, is that my default posture is to be circumspect. What meaning that I do not believe that it is sound for a community of people who are disproportionately underserved or antagonized by capitalism, as Black people are, to trust the way in which a capital institution like Hollywood, films, and popular culture in general is going to present them based on the history in which race has been used in film as well as other popular cultural production to replicate the rendering of Black people into an other, or a contained class of collective otherization for degradation or relegation, if you will, to that same kind of redundant surplus labor, reserve army of labor that kind of puts them on the out. In other words, what I'm saying is that the fascination with an exclusively Black cultural production sets up the paradigm, which I talk about in Black politics, is that Black politics being a politics of containment, as if there is a unitary Black identity that can be managed, whether it's politically or in film or in art, that is basically at the behest of Hollywood filmmakers that will categorize and depict that image in a way that facilitates the workings of capitalism. And my position has always been that overall, Black people should be very circumspect and distrustful of the way in which particularly Hollywood and even the music industry uses Black cultural production to further that ends.
Mm-hmm. That's well said. Can't even respond to that. I just want to talk about Tracy Morgan and the Mitt Romney looking at Schmiggers again. After that, that's all I can. No,
well, let me. Hey, hold on.
Okay.
Hold on. We can only do this in small blurps because we don't want to get pulled.
Oh, there we go.
You look respectable.
I just want to look employable.
Ain't nobody gonna hire you over all these Mitt Romney looking ass schmickers.
Why not? I got sales experience.
Which reminds me, St. John's is at the Garden, and I want you to take these tickets up there, sell them at full freight until tip off.
I can't do this anymore, man. I really can't. Just hand to mouth shit. It's gotta stop, all right? I gotta get solid. I'm in my 30s now.
Since when?
Today. Today is my birthday, and you forgot.
Listen to me, young Jedi, okay? What you need to do is learn to relax. I'm your uncle. You stay on the ground with me. You dig it, son?
L. Johnson.
Don't use white voice.
Present. I do know smartphones. I know technology, all right? I'm well-versed in emerging trends. And I'll tell you this, too. If you hire me, I won't let you down.
That's really inspiring.
So, just give me a chance.
Mr. Duke? Oh, my God, please. My father was Mr. Duke, and my grandfather and great uncle.
What did you guys think of that joke? I actually thought that joke was rather adorable.
Duke and Duke from Trading Places.
Yeah. What did you get? You've seen Trading Places, Paul.
Yeah.
Your dad seems like a good man that probably sat you down at a young age and was like, "Look, son, I'm gonna teach you about life."
He had his way of doing that. Another funny joke that comes up a little later in that scene was when the guy interviewing him was like, "Yeah, you know, it's science. I watched Bill Nye, and your guy, Neil deGrasse Tyson,
yes,
who is superior to Bill Nye. I think that's clear."
Someone says the film was very conservative. Is similar to black folks who say that we black folks have to do is love our family and all will be right in the world with no political commentary. Oh,
Good. But again, I mean, I think, you know, to me, this is like the default position when we're watching any movie is like, yeah, the politics are gonna suck. I mean, we know what Hollywood is after all, so it's better to just be pleasantly surprised if a movie happens to have good politics.
There's not too many movies with really good politics.
Yeah.
Leisha Brooks had me watch that movie Nomadland, not because she thought the politics were good, but because she was kind of appalled by not the opening scene, but one of the early scenes in that movie is inside of an Amazon warehouse where everybody's having like the best day ever at work at Amazon. You watch that movie, you think working at Amazon is like camp.
Part of the team, man.
They're like, oh man, they're high-fiving and shit. They're like, oh yeah, this is my favorite Morrissey tattoo. And I'm like, man, I want to go get a job at Amazon.
You know, this reminds me of a pretty, it's not the most incredible movie in the world, but it's decent. And it's interesting they even made this movie. 10,000 Black Men Named George, about A. Philip Randolph organizing the sleeping car porters.
Where is
that? What is that movie?
I think it's full on YouTube for free. You should watch it. It's decent.
Where did you find this movie at?
A friend of mine suggested it a few years ago. We actually did a screening of it in Philly, I guess 2 years ago. It's good. I mean, it sticks pretty close to the history. Again, it's not the most amazing film you ever see, but it's worth checking out.
10,000 Black Men singing?
10,000 Black Men Named George.
Interesting.
Which is, you know, playing on how they used to call the Pullman porters George. So I think Jason's, just now watching that movie. I don't know where he went.
Sorry. I just found it.
Andre Broad Charles Dutton Jr. Yeah. Oh, so it's on the YouTube of this cat, Real Black. He always has some interesting black.
Real Black has some interesting stuff, but Real Black also has like the worst black nationalist shit. I'll watch some interesting, like mildly interesting documentary, and the next thing that follows it is like a 30-minute movie with Jim Brown talking about Jim Brown bullshit, black excellence.
Right.
Why?
But yeah, that movie, and there might be 2 links on YouTube. One of them might be better quality, but yeah, last I saw it was full on YouTube. And again, I mean, there's been no other Hollywood movie I know of covering Randolph.
Showtime made this.
And it does have kind of a Showtime feel, but
Showtime used to do some interesting work back in the day. Was it Showtime or HBO that did the movie about the Tuskegee experiment?
I thought, wasn't it HBO?
Was it HBO? I know it was one of the cable channels did that. Some of those cable channels used to do some interesting black people shit, and not just in February. Because usually the good black people movies come out in February on the cable channels. Like, oh, the story of Harriet Tubman.
But there's also an interesting movie called The Killing Floor. Is that what it's called? I think about packing house workers in the 30s in the 19 teens organizing like interracial union stuff. That's decent. But yeah, I mean, again, we shouldn't expect that most movies are going to cover that kind of stuff.
We're trying to do a streaming party for, and I don't think you've seen this, Paul, the Billie Holiday movie.
I haven't seen that yet. Is that good?
What's your
Lee
take
Daniels, man? Lee Daniels.
Jinx. What's your Lee Daniels opinion?
Mine?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't really have much of one.
Like you don't like it, or you just don't watch
I guess
Precious
you don't watch Empire.
or Empire.
I did watch Empire. I didn't watch the newest season.
Oh,
I watched,
so you're a Lee Daniels fan.
I watched about two episodes of the newest season. But yeah, it was good entertainment. The old Empire was good old entertainment.
It's a story of Billie Holiday that I did not know. I thought I knew a decent amount about Billie Holiday, and surprisingly, things about Billie Holiday, Lee Daniels definitely kept out of the movie. So her bisexual nature, he actually didn't. It's implied, but it's not shown.
Right.
But her as a bit of a prostitute, he keeps in. The horrible men in her life, he definitely keeps in, and maybe that's a little overdone. But it's an interesting story. If you take that movie and put it next to Judas and the Black Messiah, I think they're interesting stories about snitches.
Right.
Where Judas and the Black Messiah is a redemption story of to me, an unredeemable man who knew what he was doing. This is more of a story of a man that knew what he was doing to a degree, but definitely tried to help Billie Holiday. And all through that man's life, even through Billie Holiday's death, he actually had severe critiques of the FBI, kind of, or not. It wasn't even the FBI at that point. I think it was ATF, or what we now call ATF, going after Billie Holiday for the intro into the drug war. So it's an interesting movie when you look at it through that lens. You have to get over the kind of, what does somebody call it? They didn't call it poverty porn. They called it depression porn or something like that. Because I mean, Billie Holiday's life is it's a horribly sad story.
Yeah.
Those songs came from a real place, and a lot of it has to do with the fact that this guy, and apparently this is real life, he pushed back against her so hard because he never wanted her to sing "Strange Fruit," which to me is one of the most powerful songs.
That's it.
What did you say, Pascal?
She definitely got antagonized. She definitely got antagonized and persecuted by the state because of that song. That is true.
Yeah.
You know, that Strange Fruit pretty much led to her eventual kind of persecution by federal authorities. But I haven't seen the Lee Daniels movie yet. But my whole problem with Lee Daniels is that all of his films are premised on demonstrating that Black people are a pathology, that there's something pathological about Black folks, and I'm not really here for
this. Has a decent class aspect to it because the FBI, I keep saying FBI, the federal agent that actually goes after her comes from status, and his mother actually constantly is yelling at him to not work for the feds because he can go into other avenues. And she keeps saying, look, your father left you with money, so you don't have to do these things, and you're taking down a Black icon. So don't take down our queen, if you will, for these white people that won't even let you in the front door. So it's an interesting story that people like us would probably take more from, but it is hard to get over, seeing this poor woman get her behind kicked.
Is it on Netflix or on Amazon?
Hulu.
Hulu.
And the actress that plays Billie Holiday sings the songs.
I heard she's actually very good in it.
She nailed it, man. There's
one of my pet peeves. Oh, sorry. I was, Jason.
What's your pet peeve?
We were talking about, I used to play an instrument. I used to play trumpet. My dad's actually a music teacher in a public school. So one of my pet peeves is in movies, the actors don't even try to make it seem like they're actually playing the instrument. It's Angela just it's so cringy. I will say Denzel Washington, and I used to play trumpet. He did a great job in Mo Better Blues. Actually seemed me like he was playing the trumpet, but I hate seeing.
I think he
people.
learned. I think he learned some stuff to play. Apparently, Andre 3000, when he was playing Jimi Hendrix, did not know how to play the guitar. So I won't watch that movie.
Oh, you're getting all personal and sensitive.
I'm like, come on, man. That's the whole thing. The fucking guy plays guitar. Like that's the whole thing. That's the whole thing. Jimi Hendrix never said profound shit. He played the guitar. Fuck. That's all you got to do. Learn a few chords, motherfucker. But yeah, I wanted to watch the Billie Holiday movie, and I was actually setting it up for us to do a patron only thing where we all watch it, and then with the patrons, and then we can actually, after we watch it, take a deep dive and get what people felt about it. I kind of want to hear what you guys think about that movie. But if you'd rather watch another movie, this 10,000, what's it called? 10,000 Black Men seems kind of interesting.
Yeah, I mean, you all should watch it. And again, like I said, it's not going to be the most amazing movie ever, but it does stay pretty true to the history. But yeah, let me know.
What are your good literary sources? I mean, Torre suggested a really good book on A. Philip Randolph to me. I forgot the title though. But
yeah, there's a few, man. Now, of course, now I'm going to blank on names, but the biography by, I think it's Jervis Anderson. No, Robert Jervis. Something with, I really should know this, but Jervis. That biography is very good, comprehensive. That's a good one. There's a few. There's one I just read about so it's called Keeping the Faith, the story of the Porters. And took, just so people know, I always think about this when we get impatient today about changes we want to see not happening. It took Randolph 12 years to organize the sleeping car porters. So kind of just put that in perspective of how long that took. And that book, what is interesting, and this is something, of course, Torre covers in his other work, but I mean, this book is not by him, but it really will show you the kind of contradictions between how Black institutions responded to the Union drive, like Black churches, Black newspapers, which were initially really against it, and how they, got some of them to switch sides over time. I kind of highlight some of the contradictions there. And of course, the Pullman Company had some Black churches in their pocket and stuff like that. So that's kind of an interesting one. But I would recommend the one by, again, I can't remember if it's Robert Jervis or Jervis Anderson, but that biography of Randolph is a great one.
I definitely want to show you guys this image, and then we're probably going to wrap up real quick. So Charlie Hebdo, do you remember that magazine?
Absolutely.
They used to say some really horrible shit about Muslim people, and everybody. There was a Muslim gentleman. Did he stab a bunch of people or shoot a bunch of people? I can't remember off the top of my head. Was it a shoot? It was a shooting, right?
I forget, but
I forget, but they killed some people in the office. And then I remember Facebook had a thing where you could like change your profile to have the Eiffel Tower on it. And everybody was Je suis Charlie.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to show you guys their new cover. There you go. There you go.
Oh, wow.
There you go.
Damn.
When it was against Islam, the world was silent and kept putting up Charlie Hebdo pics of the Eiffel Tower in defiance against the Islamic world. Now it's this I want to see what the white Western world has to say about this cover. You were silent when it was Prophet the Muhammad. And then he says something. I don't know. PB.
So the Queen with the knee on Meghan Markle's neck.
Is she saying I can't breathe? Is that what she's saying in French? You know French. I don't.
I do know. I know the in white it says Pourquoi Meghan a quitté? Why did Meghan leave Buckingham? But I can't read the it's too small for me.
Respire, is that breathe?
Parce que I can't read. It's too small.
Okay, sorry. Can I make it? Let me try to make it bigger. Does this help? Does that help?
Yeah, she said because I could no longer breathe. The questions ask why did Meghan leave Buckingham, and the answer she says because I could no longer breathe.
Wow. So this is some George Floyd I can't breathe shit.
Mm.
Wow. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks. So that's going to be trending soon, and Paul's probably going to have to do a whole video on it. So there you go.
This is what we have to look forward to.
that's your next week. You have to do a whole show about fucking Charlie Hebdo, Meghan Markle, monarchy, race in America, Oprah Winfrey.
I mean, this is the stuff I usually bypass. There's only so much of this stuff I can because I always zoom out. I'm like, wait, do we have healthcare yet? No. Okay.
Great point. I mean, that's part of this bill. I've been slowly diving into this new bill. There's definitely some things that I'm a little, I don't want to say confused on, but I don't know how I feel about them yet. And I definitely don't like this whole Cobra subsidy.
Oh, well, interesting. I don't know if we're out of time, but we've been working in Philly actually with a bunch of unions to pressure Congress on the Healthcare Emergency Guarantee Act, which was a bill Bernie and Pramila Jayapal endorsed, which would basically expand Medicare to everyone during the duration of COVID. It's basically emergency Medicare for all. But that is, in conflict with what the Democratic Party is pushing, which is COBRA subsidies, which is actually more expensive and does not even cover as many people. So I just would throw that out there. I mean, hopefully the Healthcare Emergency Guarantee Act does not have to be relevant anymore when COVID ends. But I mean, just another example of how trying to subsidize private insurance is actually more expensive than just expanding Medicare. But it's complicated, right? Because many unions have these COBRA plans. So a lot of them, again, this is kind of like when we have a limited horizon, unions are going to be like, well, I'm going to support this bill because this is going to save my COBRA plan. Because right now it doesn't seem like Medicare for all is a reality. But, we've actually we had like 30 unions sign on to this letter locally calling for the Healthcare Emergency Guarantee Act. And I think it was one of those things where if you're asked or you're pressed on it, they could change their minds. No one was like clinging to COBRA, I think it's just this case that in many areas, like there aren't people who are there to even like put this question on the table. And in the absence of that, they're just going to kind of fall in line. So that's kind of an aside, but since you mentioned COBRA, that's been on my mind.
No, the whole thing is fascinating to me. About that was the big thing in this bill. And the LA Times did a story, I want to say a couple weeks ago. It was a cover story about people that were still in the hole 5 figures, if not 6 figures, from their COVID treatments, because where they call long haulers. So people have to stay in hospitals for sometimes 4 weeks, 6 weeks. We're getting these $150,000 bills, $200,000 hospital bills. But there was some sort of relief from the CARES Act that was supposed to cover certain amounts of coverage. And this is people with healthcare.
Right. Yeah.
So even people with healthcare were still being hit with bills that were causing them to be like, well, I'm going to lose my place if they come after me because I can't afford to pay $40,000 that's left on this bill after my insurance kicks in. So there's a lot of things that I feel like we're not talking about on a national stage when it comes to this bill and a lot of these Americans that are left behind. Everybody wants to talk about vaccines. We don't know. And I will preface this by saying I am not an anti-vaxxer by any stretch of the imagination. I just have a very wonderful significant other that literally works in that world. And when we don't test these things the way we're supposed to and roll them out that quickly and kind of cross our fingers and hope for the best, we don't know what we're getting into when we open up the world.
Well, I'd actually like to ask Paul a question relative to the new Biden stimulus package. Yeah. The way it's being framed, in particularly mainstream sources like the Washington Post, even the New York Times, is that this is, and by the way, Bernie Sanders said this to some effect, that this is the most progressive anti-poverty legislation that we've had in a generation. That Biden is basically taking on poverty, like this whole type of projection that Biden's stimulus package is the Democrats returning to their good class politics, et cetera, so on and so forth. And number one, I'd like to know if you believe that. And number two, what are your thoughts on the Biden stimulus and that particular type of branding that's going on?
Yeah, I mean, it's complicated. So I don't think it's not a long-term return to like Democrats embracing class politics, but I actually think it might be true that is the most significant anti-poverty bill in a generation. But I think what that shows is just how low our standards are. Yeah, I mean, but I do think it is significant. And I mean, one thing, and I actually, not to do a shameless plug, but I just wrote a Jacobin article on something sandwiched in the bill that's not getting a lot of attention is huge pension relief. So 83 billion of the 1.9 trillion is going out to basically, I don't like to use the term bailout because pensions, so everyone remembers, is workers' deferred pay. So that is their money. It's not a bailout. But these central states pension funds, which covers up to 2 million workers and over 400,000 Teamsters, were basically, totally given support, and there's going to be no cuts to the pensions. And they were planning to make up to 60% cuts to a lot of these pensions. And this is actually the product of Teamster retirees have been organizing this for about 10 years. They've been pushing on this. So this is definitely a result of their victory, but that's actually really huge. And so also some of this state and local aid, I mean, in Philly, I've been actually working with this progressive revenue coalition, centering on taxing the rich. And we've been gearing up for, oh my God, the austerity is going to be terrible. They're going to make, they were talking about a $450 million budget shortfall for Philly. And actually, Philly got a lot of aid from this bill. And there actually is probably not going to be short-term cuts. Even the school district of Philadelphia got a lot of money from this bill. And that, and I'm not saying this, I'm not a shill for the Democratic Party. I'm not a shill for Biden, but I think we should acknowledge that it actually is pretty significant. The child payments, again, but it's all temporary. So
yeah, it expires in a year.
Right. So, and that should be, and again, I think they're at least.
How are we saying that Biden's stimulus bill is going to cut poverty 50%? If all of
it's also the metric, it's the metric being used of what child poverty is too. We have to keep that.
And again, so I think we got to be able to keep it in perspective. So again, it's like it is the most significant thing in a while, but that just shows you where we are in this country, how low our bar is. But yeah, it's not. I don't think it's a permanent return to like Keynesianism, because again, it's short term and like there's nothing about long term structural inequalities in the economy. I think it gives us like, I mean, again, like in Philly, we were bracing for like insane cuts and we were preparing to fight them, but this kind of gives some breathing room. And it is very important. And I think, it might show a little bit that, if we are building a movement strong enough, we can push and might win some things. We might be surprised we can. But yeah, I wouldn't say, oh, Biden is now FDR or better. But I think it's fair to say it is the most significant thing in a long time, but we should just be, measured about that.
I did want to ask you one thing as a teacher, and if you don't feel that there's enough time to answer this question, that's totally fine. In the homeless shelter, because I kind of had people I had a little bit more control on the comings and goings of people. We were able to have a small class where we were able to teach some kids that weren't getting schooling. I don't know if they're trying to open up schools by you, and I don't know if there's a pushback for that, because it is kind of frightening when you don't have that level of control and understanding, in a public school system. Has anybody been brainstorming any sort of like hybrid teaching ideas of how you can maybe do it safely?
Yeah. So, I mean, there have been proposals. Our district actually recently brought back K-2 students and teachers on a hybrid basis. And they've been pushing for a while. And the issue is that like no teacher would deny that virtual is not ideal. And the problem is they're saying, well, you know, it can be safe. We do this, that, and the third. But the problem is like certain districts like Philly don't have the resources to actually implement the plan safely. And there was a big thing in Philly where the third time them trying to reopen, and the first 2 times there was pushback, not just from teachers, but from parents as well. And, you know, we're dealing with buildings that on average are like 80, 90 years old. So ventilation is a big issue in our buildings. And that was like a sticking point for the union. And the district brought out this plan of like fans that literally looked like they were like 6th grade science projects. They're like, yeah, we'll stick these in the rooms. And it became like this big joke because we couldn't believe they actually thought that was a plan. And I think what some people don't realize is like the hybrid plan is not going to be education still as we know it. Because like some kids will be in the building if they choose to. They still have to work on a computer. Like we're not exchanging like paper and stuff like that. So it's still very limited. And I think the problem is, again, if the district does not have the resources because they've been starved of it for decades, you know, to implement it safely, which we all want to do, you know, it takes these resources. And some people are like, well, look, the CDC said this. But if you read the fine print, it's like, well, if you do all these things that we may not have the resources to do, including like we have buildings where they've done tests and the ventilation is like terrible.
Lead paint.
That's, I think, right. Yeah. I mean, our union's been fighting for years around our buildings, asbestos, mold, lead, roofs. Our roof caved in 2 years ago.
Jesus.
I mean, this, you know, so, you know, I think some people don't realize these are what we're dealing with. And like in that situation, it's hard to kind of implement it safely. So, I mean, I'm hopeful that next school year, you know, it can all get back to normal.
Yeah. I had a
But most districts seem like they actually are already doing hybrid plans. So.
I've seen some private schools around here that are doing some hybrid stuff. Definitely kids are in pods. The parents are a little more serious about who their kids actually are going to be around, who the parents are going to be around. But that's also a certain status of people, right? Certain class people that can afford to do that. They don't have to work with the public. They can afford to work at home. It's just been being able to do that in the environment that I was in was just good for people on so many different levels. It just for the regular people that lived in the shelter, it was nice for them just to see people going to class, learning, because it reminded them that, you know, there was some normalcy.
Right.
The kids definitely liked it because they actually, some of them had never been to school, which was also kind of shocking. Right. So like when we talk about child poverty in this bill, it definitely, I go, yeah, there's some people that are going to be helped out by it tremendously. I definitely get that and I appreciate that. But I know that those kids I see that have to take the tarp and put it over their car, they're not.
And I'll go back to something Bayard Rustin used to always say, and he, you know, being critical of the war on poverty in the 60s. And he said, the problem with it is actually there's too much about children when the real way to end child poverty is you got to give the money to the heads of household. You know what I mean? Like all these programs about training kids for jobs that don't actually exist because our economy is not creating them. He used to say, like, if you take a kid from the ghetto, train them for a job, you know, doesn't exist. You're creating a Molotov cocktail that's going to, because now you're raising expectations that can't be met. So he's saying like, really the solution to child poverty is like, you know, you're raising the minimum wage for their parents. You are having good union jobs that they can work in, you know. So again, I think, obviously if it's, I'd prefer these child tax credits over nothing, but it's not going to be like a long-term solution to that without something more.
No. But we'll see what happens. There's some people that teach a parent to fish, somebody said. Teach a parent to code and he'll fish all day. So Pascal, is there anything you want to say on this lovely Paul's birthday? We can get out of here under 5 hours.
Happy birthday to you.
There you go.
Happy Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday.
Thank you. I was waiting for that all show.
So thank you guys for
Paul, I
watching.
really hope that you enjoy
okay. Before I say thank you, sorry.
coming on our show. Do we lose Paul?
No.
Oh, I'm here.
No, it's just you. It's just you.
I will hope you enjoy coming on our program. We're developing our audience. I know you Jacobin guys kind of eclipse us on the YouTube numbers for now, but we're coming up, and hopefully you enjoyed it enough to think of coming back at another time.
Yeah, anytime you want me back, and if you want to do that 10,000 Black Men Named George, and we should do this Black Jacobin coup d'etat of Jacobin. I'm all for it.
Does Paul want to come back on Black Saturday?
Black Saturday. Well, this is
Black Saturday. We call it Black. It's not really called.
That's
Black
every Saturday. It's just Black Saturday.
It's Black. Well, there's a lot of niggas on here on Saturday.
We don't we don't only talk about Black related issues on Saturday. He calls it Black Saturday because it's me, him, and Jason together. So instead of just 2 black guys, it's 3. So that's
if you made it 4 black guys, like I said the other day, the array too of colors. We have it's like an array of row as well.
Representation matters, even for as my dad would say, even for mulattoes like me. I'm saying my dad's words, not mine. I have no.
Actually, Jean Bajlan comes on too, and Jean is technically colored because he is some kind of half Turk.
He's Kurd, man. He's from
Kurd. Sorry, I called you Turk. I called it Kurd. My bad.
Half Turk. But yeah, I'm glad to come on whenever you'll have me.
Yeah. But I'm glad you enjoyed
Black Saturday.
The Preston Smith episode as well.
Yeah, I was telling Jason I really got to read that book. I'm messing up by not reading. I've heard his name a lot, and I just haven't gotten around to doing it.
That is fighting talk. My bad, Gene. I'm sorry. That's fucked up. That's like the time I thought my buddy who's mixed, he's about the same color as Paul. I thought he was Puerto Rican in high school. And
it's funny, I get all kinds of guesses. Puerto Rican, Egyptian, Armenian, really anything. I mean, could be anything.
He's one of my best friends now, but in high school, I had known him for like 3 months. I had no idea that he was a Havzi, and I thought he was Puerto Rican. And we was talking. He said something. I was like, "Hey, man, that's our word." And he was like, "Man, I'm black too." And I was like, "Oh shit."
I think from now on, I'm just gonna say Schmiga. That's a universal. That's the universal. Yeah, it's universal. Let me stop. I'm
oh man.
Yeah, you got to make sure because it's different shows. You can't slip back in the other show and be like that.
Right.
Fuck around.
Oh, these schmiggers over here.
I'm gonna start bringing that into my Jacobin segments. So today we're gonna talk about.
I'm going on Jacobin on the 24th.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's right. Okay, I won't be on that episode, but
what, Jason? You gonna be on Jacobin on the 24th?
Jacobin, yeah.
So I will tell Jen to make sure the best Schmiga in Richmond. Jason.
It's me. What's the young light skinned girl's name? Ariella. She came with some fire on that Torah episode. She came with some fire on that.
But yeah, and we talked about a lot. Like I think they mentioned this on the show. Like I would love to collect quotes from like Baird Rustin, A. Philip Randolph, Martin Luther King, put them up without saying who said it, and watch everyone denounce them as class reductionists. Because some of the stuff they say is like,
hey,
and
make that list, and that's a show. That's a show.
And I was reading a interesting book called Marching Blacks by Adam Clayton Powell Jr.
Oh,
written in 1944, and it's really interesting because it shows the kind of consensus of the civil rights movement at that time and how labor based it was. And I couldn't believe it. Every other page just saying, but we all knew that at root, Black people's problems were economic. Every other page, that's just like, and you can see at that period that was like a real consensus point. But anyway, I'm going on too long. But yeah, I want to do that experiment. It's a social experiment. Watch all the white people come out of the woodwork like, oh my God, this class reductions. I'm like, said by Barrett Rustin.
Gene Bajlan said, here's a game, Robin DiAngelo quote or Richard Spencer.
Tell you.
Look, I'm down to do this. If you guys are down next
I'm going to do
Saturday,
some research.
Paul, if you're down to come back on Black Saturday, Marcus will be back. And Marcus is a little closer to your age. I think Marcus is like 34. I'm 43.
Okay.
So yeah. So it'll be a fun like generational thing. I think I want to play this quote game. Who said it? That seems like a lot of fun to do because I bet nobody would get it. If we can find a prize we can give people, I ain't got no money, so it's gonna have to be something. I don't know what, but I'll figure something out. We can give motherfuckers prizes and shit if they figure it out without using Google.
Right.
So sorry. Gene Bajlan's son's birthday is tomorrow. Zal. Is he gonna be 3? Is he gonna be 3 or 2, Gene? Is he turning 2 or is he gonna turn 3? He's got a little kid. We both have little kids. We're way too old to be chasing around little kids.
Turn Saturdays. Oh God. Only an academic would come up with that term.
Here, I think Schmigga Saturday is better, but
Schmigga Saturday.
I'm like, dude. if look,
that's more relatable, you know.
We might as well.
Oh,
we might as well. We're not getting in trouble right now. No one's coming
right
after
now, but no one has Twitter open right now, so we don't know.
Oh man, yo.
I can't wait to see what people are saying about this shit on fucking Twitter. They done turned out Paul from Jacobin.
Oh man,
it's bad enough we had Hotep Jim Pan.
Right. Yo, that was so funny when she told me that. Like, oh man.
I told Teray, I was like, hey, when you get on the show, man, do me this one solid, bro. Call Jim Pan, tell her she's a Hotep Jim Pan. Tell her. He did it smooth. He was like, so Jen, what'd you think of Dr. Umar Johnson's? All right, we can't talk about Umar, man, because I'll be really hurt if Paul called up and was like, hey man, you gotta cut that shit out.
Got some bricks thrown through my house.
Oh, I think that fool's got some people in Philly. Like he's from there, right? Like he's a legit Philly man.
I plead the Fifth Amendment. I got nothing to say.
Umar ain't coming on the show, man. He would not like anything me or Pascal have to say. We actually talk to white people.
I mean, thank you, Riverman, half Bayesian. There you go.
Oh, this is funny. You know what else is funny? So many black people that come on this show are from their parents are from the islands.
We just lost. See, you giving
a lot of West Indians have great politics.
You're giving more fuel to the ADOS people right now.
Oh, am I? Oh, because you taking their jobs?
Yeah.
The island Negroes will not replace us. Keep this an Umar free zone. Can somebody, I know the people that are watching right now, there's got to be some motherfucker on there that knows how to do memes and shit. Can you make a meme that says Umar free zone? Because I will make that the fucking cover thumbnail for an episode.
I just want to publicly state I do not support any of these policies. Everyone who lives in Philadelphia, I am neutral.
Yeah,
I love all people, and
getting Paul in trouble, man.
You know what? I've gotten in so much trouble before saying the wrong shit. Like my first time in LA, saying blood all the time, and it was like, "Hey, man, y'all gotta watch that shit." Like, why? It's like, you don't understand gangs, nigga. I was like, oh, y'all do that shit out here for real? It's not just movies. All right, let me stop. Okay, I have this queued up. I'm going to play a little bit of it as we fade into the sunset. Thank you guys for joining us on this. Also, this
should form a coalition. All right, the Islanders.
This should be a shirt.
Everyone else. We can't pull off a coup without a coalition. So
you have a picture of a bunch of Black Americans with Black Panther shirts with tiki torches saying the Island Negroes.
Oh man.
Oh yeah, I'll tell you off air, Pascal, about what certain people have been saying about you and ADOS.
Oh, here we go.
It's pretty. No, you're gonna find this funny, but I have to say it off.
Limelight said neutral schmiggers.
Do a show on 5% of hip hop. Why are you trying to get me in trouble? Them are some of the people I know too in them streets. I don't want brand new.
They asked us to do a show on 5% of hip hop.
Mm-hmm. Are you old enough to remember Brand Nubian, Paul? Have you ever gone back to 90s hip hop? Is that not a thing?
I'm not too familiar with them.
Okay.
I
mean, that's old. That you might, yeah. You might even be a hip hop guy. I'm asking you, like, all Black people.
A little bit, but as far as 90s hip hop, I haven't really gotten into them.
They were definitely a thing. I think Pascal went to high school with them.
I did not go to high school with them. They were contemporaries to my youth growing up in New York City.
I thought all niggas from New York went to school together.
No. We have several schools in New York, Jace, just like any other city.
No, they're all alike, you know.
That one high school, I want to say Tribe, and like if it wasn't De La, it's like Tribe and Jungle Brothers all went to the same school, and another group I think went to that school too. And here, Skyline High, that's where all the hieroglyphics guys went. If you're familiar with that rap crew.
Familiar.
And actually some other rap crews that came out around that same time all went to Skyline High, which is up the street from here. So
Joanne, I'm from Queens. Only kings come from Queens.
Black ass. Pascal went to school with Kid and Play.
No, I did not go to school with Kid and Play either.
I love how I just keep believing Jason. I'm like still not getting that you're just like messing with me. Like, wow, you went to school with Biggie too? Wow.
No.
You go to school with anybody famous? KRS, anybody?
In high school?
As a B?
I actually went to high school with a guy you probably won't know who he worked with Sean Combs. He's like a co-head of Bad Boy. His name is Harv Pierre. He's big in the hip hop game. He helped produce the song "Flavor in Your Ear." With
Craig Mack.
Craig Mack. He's in the video. Yeah. So he's probably the most famous cat that went to high school with me. He was president of Bad Boy for some time, as a matter of fact.
That's legit. What about you, Paul?
Go to high school, anyone famous?
Yeah, Will Smith.
No, I don't have anything cool to say. One cool story is, of course, Rihanna is from Barbados. So my uncle used to drive her to school when she was a little girl. But Barbados is like, you got to realize, like 300,000 people. So everyone knows everyone. So he was friends with her mother.
I know a lot of Bayesian cats from New York. I mean, I know a lot of Bayesians, man. I had a lot of cats who I went to college with who were Bayesians. Good brothers. Yeah, good cats, man. Yeah.
They call it the gem of the Caribbean. I know Riverman will know what I'm talking about.
The most stable economy in the Caribbean.
I feel like the Caribbean actually had some. Pascal didn't go to school with Jay-Z.
Jay-Z's from
Oh shit. Oh shit! Gene says my dad went to school with most of the people who formed the Iraqi government.
Oh wow!
Do they have a record contract?
Oh my god! I'm sorry. I keep trying to hang the fuck up. This is how these shows last so long. But this shit is too fucking funny. I did actually go to school with famous people. Like they're famous now. The motherfuckers wasn't famous then.
All right.
They're definitely famous as fuck now. And I think this shit's fucking hilarious.
Yeah,
yeah, Rihanna is the shit. She lives in the States now, right?
Man.
yeah. And she's not putting out music anymore, really. She's got her makeup and lingerie and all that.
Yeah, man. She's doing a black capitalist thing.
Damn, now everybody's planning who Pascal went to school with. This is a fun ass game. Please, y'all take this
not
to
go to
Twitter.
school with Eric B, man.
I heard
Wine Dance, Long Island. I'm from Queens.
I heard he went to school with Aretha Franklin. That's what I heard.
Aretha Franklin is from Detroit. I am from Queens, New York.
I know. I just heard that she moved to New York and then went to school. That's what I heard. I don't know. I could be wrong, but
So can we move on to the exit video, please?
I'm sorry. I'm a guest. I'm not being a very polite guest.
No, that's part of the fun.
Right.
Can we hashtag Pascal went to school with, and then people can put in all these old names. Oh shit.
Oh, Mia Motley, the head of state in Barbados.
I feel like the islands has like more leftist politics because of the 70s, right? There was some
well,
happening in
and
the 70s.
you know, I think politically where I'm at is because my family, they were involved with the Labor Party. Actually, Barbados has two parties. Both of them are Labor parties. And the Labor parties were part of their kind of anti-colonial stuff as well. But it's interesting there too, because like you can't use identity politics in the same way, right? Because in a place like Barbados, you know, the ruling class is black, the state is black, wealthy people are black, middle and working class are black. So how does that work in that, you know, in that climate?
I want to do an episode on islands individually in the Caribbean. I got to do an episode on Grenada with a man that was a journalist. He actually was there when the invasion happened. He actually got kind of fucked up during the invasion. A good friend of mine from here in California actually relocated to Grenada and connected me with this man. So if you guys know people in the islands that want to give the history of different places, I know Pascal and I talked about doing a Haitian history episode. We did a contemporary episode of Haitian politics, which is up now.
This is a good one. I did not go to school with LL Cool J, but LL Cool J went to high school close to my house. He went to Andrew Jackson High School, and that was walking distance from my house. And he's actually from a neighborhood close to where I grew up in Jamaica, Queens. And yes, we were born the same year.
Oh, you're the same age as LL?
LL was born in January. I was born in December of the same year. And we both look good. We both look good for our age too.
I've never met LL. I want to meet LL. I've never met him.
Bring him on the show. He'd come on the show, right?
I would, dude. I would love. There's certain cats I would love to get on the show.
You know that LL Cool J used to be a Republican, right?
I believe it. I just because I want to meet them motherfuckers don't mean I think he got good politics.
I like his music.
Thank you. I'm not trying to get him on here to talk about presidents. We can talk about Hollywood, but I want to talk about presidents. When is Wesley Snipes coming on? That's what I want to talk about.
No, hopefully
Wesley Snipes. That's who Pascal went to school with. They used to date the same time.
Wesley Snipes is like 6 years old.
No, you're mistaken. He went to school with Denzel. Come on, keep it straight.
Oh, that's right.
Oh, hold on. Paul has jokes. Paul has jokes. With his coffee LA looking ass.
You know what's fucked up?
I've had jokes the whole time.
Hey, you know what's fucked up, Paul? I called. Do you know the left flank vets?
Nah.
Okay, they're a group of that's fucked up. Nah. That's the most fucked up shit you never heard of you. They're a group of left flank. They're a group of
left former military podcasters.
Okay. Yeah, and one of them is colored, and he comes on our show. And one day I called him black, and we started cracking up. And he goes, "Thank you, because I'm the light skinned one of my family." He's part Jamaican. His family's from Jamaica, so they give him shit about being the light one.
Mm-hmm.
So me calling him black ass is he loves it, which I think is hilarious because he's not that dark. But we are all darker than you, Paul. So what that means is when the world opens back up, you will be driving in the car, or at least in the front seat.
Okay, I'm gonna do that
because we're not trying to get that ticket.
Mm-hmm.
DP. Gene says Pascal and Doug need a shit. Paul went to school with the Kardashians. That's fucked up.
Is it?
Wait, one of them's single now.
That's true.
Kim is single. Damn.
Yo.
Oh, you looking for the
how
video?
mad would y'all be on the chat? How mad would y'all be if I got with Kim Kardashian?
I wouldn't be mad at all. I'd be like, you got video?
Jason gonna get I mean, if there was a sex tape like that, this podcast will blow up. So right.
Me and Kim is just freeing black people from prison left and right. That's all we're doing. Making tapes and freeing Negroes from prison. That's it.
Get the schmiggers out of jail.
Right.
Who wants a pardon? All right, I'm gonna fucking stop. All right, fuck. We done fucked around for a half hour. Fuck around with black people. That's why I can't get shit done. Too many. Maybe the show should be called Too Many Schmiggers. All right.
Did you get the new clip?
Please just call me Calvin.
All right, I'm calling you Calvin.
I noticed here under education that did it say that you didn't graduate college?
Well, yeah, see, I was 3 credits short from getting my business degree, but then my mom got laid off. And, I had to drop out to help with the rent.
Is she addicted to drugs, or?
What?
Does she have gambling issues, or?
No, man.
Pop's in the picture, or?
My dad was not in the picture.
I went to boarding school, so there were months where I didn't see my parents for breaks, and it can be hard. I've read a lot of studies that say that not having a dominant male figure at home is so detrimental to a child.
Do they say that?
Yeah, they say that.
Who?
Scientists. Bill Nye did
The science guy.
Your guy, Neil deGrasse Tyson. You think that not having that kind of male role model could put you at a disadvantage?
No more of a disadvantage than having a father who handed you your position.
Handed? I was not handed anything.
So you're saying Daddy never donated a building to get you into an Ivy League school?
No. Yeah. Well, there was a small off-campus library.
And Daddy never had to sneak you into an overpriced rehab facility to cover up a cocaine addiction, Calvin?
It was Oxy, and my mom took me.
Kiss my ass, Calvin. Hey, you know something? You've been judging me since I walked in here. Which sucks, because I am so motivated. You know what? I just can't wait for them to find blackface photos of you from my office party.
I was Will Smith's Aladdin, okay?
Peace, Calvin.
There was blue face over the black.
Peace, y'all.